Hi, welcome to the Krag von Tia channel. And today I'm going to talk about the problems with the IGCSE Economics textbook. And the one I'm using is by Cambridge. I'm going to show the book to you. Here it is, this textbook. Now, this video is only my opinion, so please don't base your major life decisions off this video. And I'm going to focus mainly on the problems from chapter 1 to chapter 21. Because that's what I've studied so far at school, okay? So my first problem is that there's way too much rambling in the textbook, especially on the topic of demand and supply. Here's an example of the topic of price changes. So price changes is part of demand and supply. The textbook wrote 4 paragraphs for this chapter, and they wrote a paragraph for each case of price changes. Like when demand shifts to the right, that's one paragraph. When supply shifts to the left, that's another paragraph. But that entire thing could have been summarized in just one paragraph and just show 4 diagrams, which are much easier to understand than the long paragraph of long text of the book. And there's also rambling like this in other parts of the book. Like, let's say about when some factors influencing something, the textbook would just give a bunch of unnecessary examples, and it wastes my time while I have to revise for exam. I have to read a bunch of long text. Now, the second problem with this textbook is bias. I have not started learning the macroeconomic topic yet, but just by looking at this first page, I can already see the bias. So I'll read the first sentence of the topic for you. The general role of the government is to improve the general welfare of its people. Many pro-market economists would disagree with that statement. Some would say that the role of the government is to prevent aggression between people, and that's it. And some of the economists think some other ideas of the role of the government. But many would disagree with the idea of government role is to provide welfare. And my point here is that these things are debatable and should not be put in an objective statement like what I've quoted from the textbook. But there's not only a pro-government bias, there's also the pro-market biases. Like, this bias seems to depend on the topic of the government, topic the textbook is talking about. Like on the topic of market failure, they talk badly about how markets can lead to monopolies, and monopolies can abuse monopoly power. But whether market leads to monopoly is still a debated topic among economists, and it's not a settled issue yet. But for the pro market bias, there's a part on the market economic system. They say how great the market system is, and how all the rich countries have a lot of economic freedom. Although this bias on this one is a bit less clear, and there's still counter arguments made by the book, so it's not as bad as the other biases. My third problem with this book is that it doesn't allow arguments against the theory the book is presenting, and does not explain how to prove whether the idea in the book is true or not, while other subjects like psychology and geography and sciences teach students about methods to do experiments or do field works to test their theory or test their ideas. This economic textbook doesn't offer any. Imagine if the information in the science textbook comes from what the author thinks is true, instead of from like actual experiments and research. I mean, if it just comes from what the author thinks is true, that would be a disaster. But that's basically some of the information in this economic textbook. Take, for example, the topic of households, which is, by the way, the most badly written chapter I've learned so far. There's just a lot of information about how some factors affect household spending, saving, and borrowing. But these things are way too subjective to be explained as facts. I don't think that this topic should have even been put in this textbook, and the textbook is not like in history. A learner can argue both ways, like for or against that idea. So I have to, when the textbook is like this, I have to remember all the information that might not be true or might be subjective, and then I write them on like an exercise in the book, pretending that they are hard facts. Now, my last problem with this textbook is the questions in the book's exercises. There's two type of them. The first type are the chapter review questions, which consists of roughly 5 to 8 questions per chapter. The problem I have with this is that it doesn't really require thinking. All the learner need to do is recall the information and then copy and paste information from the other parts of the textbook. But even worse is that there's a revision checklist right next to the chapter review question. So a student can just copy everything from there and rearrange it a bit into a questions and answer format. And then the exercise is done without even thinking. Now this is not true for every chapter, but most of them are like this. And the other type of exercises questions are the exam style questions. This one is sometimes a bit better because they actually require thinking skills and not just like recalling facts and copy and paste. However, I have another problem with this. Multiple choices. With multiple choice, there's a definite answer, even though things in economics are sometimes debatable. And the most annoying of all the multiple choice questions is which is the most likely? What is really asking is which is the most likely in the author's opinion. Because I don't think that the author can prove with very high certainty that his theory is true or not. It's just what he thinks is true. But for the other parts, other exam style questions and other multiple choices, I don't have as much issue with them. So that's it for my opinion on the problems of IGCSE Economics textbook. This video is not saying that the textbook is absolutely horrible. I was just pointing out some problems. If you want to express some opinions, write them down in the comments, and if you like this channel, please subscribe. And bye!